Fire up your meme machines, everyone, because today we're talking about Mega Man 8.
Mega Man, today we finish this!
Mega Man 8 is a video game. Got a good one too, if you ask me. You know what's a more flawed experience? The tower stages. In case you're not in the know, as with any Mega Man game, once the 8 Robot Masters have been brutally assassinated, the final levels become accessible. It's here that you'll be put through your paces, testing you on your platforming, combat, and special weapons. And seeing as I now have 100 plus gigabytes of footage on my drive, I might as well put it to use and break down the tower stages in painstaking detail.
Ready!
Mega Man games rarely put their best foot forward during the castle stages, but the first stage of 8's castle seems to go out of its way to be as awful as possible. The bulk of the stage is spent on the jet board, returning from Frostman's stage, and it is about as trial and error as it could possibly be. It starts deceptively fair in its challenge, but quickly accelerates to being too fast to reasonably react to. The jump and slide alerts are of little help here, since there are so many jumps towards the end that the alerts start to overlap and blur into an auditory haze of jumping and sliding, only to be interrupted by your demise. The jumps are very strict, requiring almost frame-perfect timing to clear the gaps. Holding forward whilst jumping does give you a little bit more leniency, but the trade-off there is that you're closer to the leading edge of the screen and therefore have even less time to react. I think I died about 6 times on this one section, and it's absolutely an enormous spike in difficulty. This jetboarding section really is a fundamental failure of level design. I feel like it's going for a trial and error design, but if this is the case then it misses the most fundamental part of trial and error design. To paraphrase the great EPG, trial and error design requires precision of movement and the ability to take your time, both of which are hampered when the movement speed is too high. When the player dies, it needs to feel like the player's fault, and not the game being designed poorly. The one consolation is that, since there are no bolts to collect, the focus is just getting to the end of the stage, which I do appreciate. Few things are more frustrating than missing a bolt and having to redo a large section all over again just to have another shot at it. And now is as good a time as any to mention that I was having it easy. I played this game with an original PAL copy on my PS2, and no, I don't need reminding how much it cost, shut up Josh, which meant that the game was running at 50Hz rather than 60Hz. Effectively, I was playing the game at about 83% of the intended speed, and it was still brutal in its demands. Secondly, I'm fortunate enough to have a very low latency setup, with the open source scan converter upscaling, and I was playing on a TV that is very good for gaming. If you have a laggy TV screen, especially with the 60Hz version, I genuinely think this section is close to unbeatable. However, all that said, I would be lying through my teeth if I said that finally clearing that slide wasn't satisfying as all hell. Doesn't excuse awful design though. Once that bilge is seen to, the remainder of the stage reprises Searchman's gimmick of using the Thunderclaw to navigate your way over bottomless pits. This section is markedly easier, and if you're familiar with Searchman's stage then it won't take long to get back into the swing of things. The only real stumbling block is this wall of pegs, and a large bottomless pit below necessitating multiple do-or-die swings. Grabbing the second peg is the real challenge here, and timing is everything. If you mindlessly spam the claw, you'll overshoot the pegs and fall to your death. If you wait too long, you'll undershoot and suffer the same fate. A final set of pegs give you a good opportunity to get a free 1-up, almost as if the stage is apologising for the crap you've just had to deal with. The boss at the end is the Ititamino, and he is fairly straightforward when you learn his gimmick. To give you a quick cheat sheet, when he drops down from above, go to the second dividing column along from him. Aim the Mega Ball up, kick, dodge the hazard, repeat, dead. So in conclusion, stage 1 is pretty rubbish. The good news is that it's all uphill from here.
Ready!
Stage 2 kicks things off with some basic platforming that largely revolves around timing your movements around the flying skullhead things. Ordinarily, these enemies would require good timing and careful maneuvering to dispatch, but we're in the timeline where the arrow shot and the fast charge exists, so we'll just use them instead. Yeah, this stage and the next will demonstrate why this combo is just absurdly overpowered for dealing with regular enemies. The shotgun blast just melts chunkier enemies. It ignores some enemies' guard periods, and the fast charge means you can pump them out so quickly that special weapons become largely obsolete, outside of niche use cases and boss weaknesses. After navigating the ladder shaft and exploding block sections, the stage's main gimmick appears: Rush Jet, returning from Tengu Man stage. Whether you enjoy this here will basically depend on if you enjoyed it before, because it's more of the same here. It's largely about as difficult as it was there, except now you have absurd power-ups that can shred anything in your way. Whilst Rush Jet does have the benefit of not being the jetboard, it's just so damn thrilling. The only real hazard is this section, where you have to make it to the end of a long wiggly passage before the auto-scrolling turns Mega Man into Mega Mash. If, like me, you know it's coming up ahead of time, you can get through it no problem. If you don't know it's coming up, you will almost certainly lose a life, and it's just textbook bad level design. The boss at the end is the Blyking, I think that's how you pronounce it, and it is a good boss. His attacks require good movement and attention to dodge, and the limited windows to attack are necessary to stop the player just steamrolling right through it. But that's if you're fighting honourably with the Mega Buster. I am not honourable. If you combine the Energy Saver power-up with the Astro Crush and attack when the large top and bottom wings are extended, this boss is an absolute joke. So overall, while certainly not the worst castle stage, it's easily the most forgettable.
Ready.
Stage 3 is all about platforming, and it's easily my favourite level of the four. There are no annoying gimmicks, no auto-scrolling, just you and all the time you need to make carefully planned jumps. The only moment of questionable level design I found were these flying spikes that seem to be there solely to screw over those who don't have the super armor. Some may question the design of this section though. The point of contention is this enemy at the end of a long spike pit that you need to not kill too early, otherwise he won't throw the boulder that you need to clear the jump. I can understand why this might frustrate some first-time players, but I think it is smart level design. I like it because the jump from the bomb to the platform is clearly too large, and the boulder throwing mook is clearly in the frame, so any player who's observing their surroundings and not just going guns blazing can quickly put two and two together. I don't believe the game is trying to catch people out with cheap trial and error, like in the previous stage. I believe it's testing your observation, your understanding of enemies you fought prior, and your ability to not panic under pressure. The second half of the stage has a bit more focus on vertical platforming, but other than that, it's largely the same. Unfortunately, both boss fights in this stage are absolute jokes, and I beat them on my very first try. Base is the slightly harder of the two, but his attacks are highly predictable, and even without his weakness, the Mega Buster was more than enough to make a laughingstock out of him for the second time in this game. In fact, it's so easy that Mega Man decides to rub it in Base's face with poor localization. The poor chap. The Green Devil is an even bigger pushover, as the combination of the arrow shot and the Thunderclaw just cuts through it like a knife through warm butter. You don't even need the Energy Saver. Buster Only is probably a fairer fight, but the counter-argument there is that not using its weakness at this stage in the game is deliberately handicapping yourself, and any boss is going to be harder when you're handicapping yourself. So stage 3. Level is good, bosses are pushovers.
Ready.
Stage 4 is the boss rush, as per usual with Mega Man games, and I am firmly in the camp that believes that the boss rush is little more than padding to add an extra 15 minutes of playtime. You have to fight the 8 Robot Masters back to back, with one large health pickup between each fight. The bosses are exactly the same as before, they aren't any harder, and they are just as easy with their weaknesses, which you are guaranteed to have by this stage. I don't understand why boss rushes are such a staple of the Mega Man series, I really don't. Conversely, Wily Machine 8 and the subsequent Wily Capsule are, in my opinion, the best final bosses in any Mega Man game I've beaten, which is like 6 of them by this point. Wily Machine 8's attacks are well telegraphed and very dodgeable on a first fight, but the amount going on at any given time, as well as trying to get damage in here and there, means the boss still demands your full attention. The Wily Capsule is considerably more challenging. Whilst 3 of his attacks are nothing to write home about and shouldn't hit you too much outside of silly mistakes, the 4 homing shots are far more challenging. They can be reliably dodged, but said dodge requires very strict timing and a very strict sequence of inputs. You need to jump at just the right height when they first appear, you need to be airborne when they do their first home, and then you need to be on the ground to slide out of the way on the second home. If you jump too high or too low, they will hit you. But learning to dodge them is an incredibly satisfying process. Both phases of the fight are perfectly doable with the Mega Buster, and if anything, the Capsule is easier with the Buster than its weakness, the close range Flame Sword, since distance is key to reliable dodging. It is a difficult fight, yes, but an absolutely fair one. It and the final boss of Mega Man and Bass are the only final bosses in any Mega Man game I've played where I've never felt frustrated. Each failed attempt just made me want to try again and get a little closer to success. And that success, on my last life, with that last bit of health, was a very satisfying one, indeed. So stage 4 is about 15 minutes of time wasting, followed by about 2 to 4 minutes of a genuinely excellent final boss. So how do the tower stages cap off Mega Man 8 as a whole? Well, like I've discussed before, the tower stages are flawed, be it frustrating gimmicks, boring gimmicks, pushover bosses, or general time wasting. Compared to the 8 main stages that preceded it, they're undeniably a step down in quality, but writing them off entirely is out of the question for me. Stage 3 has a lot of fun platforming despite the humiliating boss fights. Dr. Wily is one of the best bosses in the whole series, 8th time is the charm I guess, and both of them are quintessential Mega Man. I suppose that the tower stages are a microcosm of Mega Man 8 as a whole. Whilst it certainly has its low points, it also has some very high peaks that, to me, make it all worthwhile, and makes Mega Man 8 a worthy member of the series in turn.